This new Hunter Void build lets you walk around like a ninja, staying invisible permanently for as long as you want. You'll get buffed weapon DPS while also having insane damage of up to 600,000 damage with your super alone, allowing you to completely melt bosses and champions in the game regardless of the difficulty when playing solo. Now, I've made Hunter Void builds in the past, and since the 30th anniversary's change to ability cooldowns, I got put off with my previous build being nerfed, but now with Void 3.0 here, Hunters actually have one of the best subclasses in the game for dealing DPS, so in this video we're going to be going over the new Hunter build, break it down with the setup and all that good stuff, and guys, there will be a dim link below for you to check out as well. Now, this video is sponsored by Awaya. They offer cheap and reliable Destiny 2 silver. If that's something you're looking for, you can find them linked below along with my discount code, but for now be sure to leave a rating, comment, subscribe and share for more, and now without further delay, roll the intro. Now, firstly, as always, if you like these build videos and you want to see more top builds for Destiny 2 Witch Queen, be sure to check out the full playlist below for more, as I will be covering new, fun and insane builds every week here on the channel. And if you have a build you'd like me to look at, feel free to share that below in the comments or contact me on Discord. That link is below also. Now, with this new Hunter build, you'll be able to stay invisible for as much as you want using a new Void 3.0 subclass update and those sweet new aspects. But this build can actually be optimized as a variant, so you can use the same initial build layout but use many different exotics, and I will be going over all the exotic armor you can use with this build to make it as effective as possible in the endgame PvE. For this build though, we will be focusing on being able to stay invisible as much as possible for when you really need to, but at the same time we're also going to be buffing our supers DPS, which is insane for killing bosses, as well as ad clearing and harder content. So you can use this build in something like a Grandmaster Nightfall, because the Tether will be worth using on both the ads and bosses, not just one. So far I've used this build in a Legend and Master Lost sector, as well as the new Legendary campaign for Witch Queen. But the Tether subclass is my main build for my Hunter, except I use the Sixth Coyote as I usually dodge more than intended. Now, with this build we will be using the Orpheus Rig, and this will improve our Tether massively, and it doesn't matter what tree of the Tether you want to use, because with the Void 3.0 you can mix it up and still keep the same base build setup, so that's one thing I really like about Void 3.0. So starting with the loadout here, for the initial setup it's recommended that you use Void weapons. That is because we will be buffing those using elemental wells, but you can make slight adjustments if you'd rather not be restricted to using Void weapons. But the loadout here with a scout rifle, glaive and galley, as well as using the overload grenades, will ensure that you have every champion covered while also using Void weapons to increase their DPS. Now, you can use one other thing like an arbalist and a hand cannon, and then you still have all the requirements for champions, but you really can use anything for normal content. Just make sure you make those adjustments if you're going into endgame PvE, and ideally use a Void weapon if you can for the extra DPS, or replace that elemental well mod altogether. Now, for this subclass we will be using a Void Shadow Shot Moebius Quiver, and this will fire off multiple tethers in one that weaken and suppress enemies, and you can fire that shot twice or 3 times if using the Orpheus Rig Exotic. You can use the normal single shot tether if you want, but this one is much better currently, as it does deal a stupid amount of damage. For the dodge though, you want the Gambler's Dodge so that you can get your melee straight back when dodging near an enemy. Your grenade choice is up to you, but the aspects you want are Trapper's Ambush. This lets you activate Quick Fall using your melee charge, where you slam to the ground, weakening enemies and going invisible at the same time, which also works on your allies. It's pretty much the same as the Shatter Dive on Stasis, so it will use the hotkey or controller setting that is binded to your air dive ability, which you can change in your settings menu. The next aspect though, we have Vanishing Step. Pretty simple, dodging makes you invisible, so you can dodge near an enemy to get your melee charge back instantly while going invisible at the same time. Then you can use that melee charge to go invisible again, then dodge and get that straight back again, and then just repeat, allowing you to always be invisible if you have a max cooldown for your mobility stat. The fragments I'm using here are Echo of Undermining to weaken enemies without grenade, Echo of Provision where damaging targets with grenade grants melee energy. Probably not needed, but it does help if you have low mobility so that you can't dodge often to get it back. But then we also have the Echo of Persistence where void buffs like our invis will last longer. 100% put that on. For the exotic, we are using the Orpheus Rig. Now, we'll get to that in just a moment, but the other exotics you can use are Graviton Forfeit, Assassin's Cowl, Stompies, Omnioculus, the Sixth Coyote, and Star Eater scales. Now Star Eaters I haven't tested yet, so I'm not 100% sure if it's worth using Star Eaters or Orpheus Rig for maxing out the DPS, but do let me know down below if you do know. Now Orpheus Rig. This will provide ability energy for each target tethered if using the single shot, but for our Moebius Quiver we will get an extra shot, so 3 shots means that we can deal up to 200,000 DPS, which is not even funny in comparison to things like a Thunder Crash. Now before we get into the mods, I just want to say that you can make changes. You don't have to use the exact setup that I have, so you can play around and see what works for you, because there are so many different combinations that will work with this build. You can use Energy Converter with Bad Juju for faster supers, you can use Sixth Coyote for guaranteed infinite invisibility with 100% uptime, or you could use extra reserves for infinite special ammo and so on. The best part about this build is that you can make those minor changes easily to suit the type of playstyle you want. So for the mods with this setup, we are starting with Reaping Wellmaker. This will spawn a Void Elemental Well when you defeat an enemy after using your class ability, which you'll be doing quite often to go invisible and to get your melee ability back. Then we'll be using Well of Tenacity, where picking up that well will reduce the damage we take from combatants for a short time. Then we have the new seasonal artifact mod for 1 energy cost, which is the Font of Might, where picking up that well will also give a Void weapons increased damage because it's the same element as our subclass. If you're not using Void weapons, don't use this and instead use another Void Elemental Well mod, but the last Elemental Well mod is the Font of Wisdom to increase our intellect and improve the recharge rate of our super. Definitely something you really want, as we are a DPS super and ability build. Now I'm also using Powerful Friends, but only for the plus 20 to mobility, so that I can get that 100 mobility in total. So if you don't need this, then don't use it. Now for your normal armor mods, we have our Ammo Finder mod for our helmet, our champion mods in our gauntlets, which if you need to take off your stat mod or your Font of Wisdom, then just do that so that you can slot on the champion mods, because that is fine, as you do need to prioritize what is more important in endgame PvE, which is understandable. But for the chest, we are using the 2-in-1 Thermoshock plating to gain arc and solar damage resistance, along with our heavy ammo reserve mod. For the legs, we have Absolution and our Rocket Scavenger mod. Now for your class, you can use Devour in Depth to increase your super's DPS, but to me, it's a 50-50. If you think you can cast your super when you're about to die and not die, then go for it. But if you think you'll die, then don't use this mod, because you will most likely make your build worse than better if you cannot use that mod efficiently and instead get yourself killed. Now for your artifact mods, a good alternative to replace Powerful Friends or Font of Wisdom is the Volatile Flow. This thing can be pretty good, so that is another mod I recommend using, but if you're not using a Devour in Depth in your class, then your alternative for endgame PvE is the Lucent Finisher, to guarantee you that heavy ammo when finishing champions. Amazing for solo Lost Sector runs when farming exotics, but you can also use the Suppressing Glaive as well, which will suppress enemies to the point where they just sit there and do nothing. And you also have the Overload Grenades if you need them, so there are quite a few good mods to pick from. As for your stats, you do want to go with mobility to 100. That is a must if you want to benefit from infinite invisibility, but the second stat you want to go for is recovery and then intellect. Overall, this build can cause some serious damage if you use it right, but I will have 2 dim links down below. The main one will be this one, which is the build setup, and I will have another one that should be there soon if it's not there already, which is the alternative build with Sixth Coyote. That is the one that I use all the time and never really take off. But this build is one of the best hunter builds in Destiny 2 currently for PvE. Now guys, that is your 3rd build of the series featuring the new Void 3.0 subclass update for the Hunter in Destiny 2 Witch Queen Season of the Risen. If you liked this build, then you may like some of my other builds, which you can find in the full Season 16 builds playlist linked below. I do upload builds every week here on the channel, so stay tuned for more build videos. For now though, be sure to give this one a try and let me know your thoughts on it down below. And whatever you hunters get up to, have a good one, and I'll see you soon for the next video.